Hi, and welcome to episode 10 of The Builder's Office. My name's Hugh Maastricht. I run a business called New Realm Homes down here in Melbourne, and I'm really looking forward to bringing you another great episode of The Builder's Office. Today, I wanted to do a little bit more when it comes to the mental health side of the building industry, whether you are a homeowner, whether you're a builder, a tradesperson, or anybody in the industry as a whole. And continuing with that theme that we've been going over the last month, I have with me a fabulous guy from Tasmania. His name is Paul Purdon, and he has such a wealth of experience and knowledge when it comes to the industry that I really wanted to get him on today just to have a chat about some of his experiences and things that can enlighten everybody to what goes on in the background and things that can help them get through their journey of building as well. So everybody give him a little bit of a hand. I wish I had a little clappy device to go on and give it a little bit of a clap and welcome him on board. But here he is, Paul Purdon from the is it a sunny Apple Isle today?
It's a little sunny, Hugh. Thanks, and yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to come and have a chat with you.
That's great, Paul. I've been really looking forward to this chat for the last little while since we booked it in, and yes, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of this, and I hope that everybody else gets some value from what we discussed today.
Cool.
So we might jump into it, and we might find out a little bit more about you and the things that you've sort of gotten up to over the last. How long have you been in the industry?
Just be careful, mate. Yeah, 48 years, I think it has been, 47, 48 years. So I started out as a joiner, building fine furniture, and then got into renos houses. Was a Hotondo franchise builder here in Hobart. Was one of the inaugural franchise builders for a number of years. Did a lot of architectural homes after that, and got into the shed industry probably 20 years ago. Started off with the Rambuild franchise, and then we've ended up now the last probably 15 years with Fairdinkum sheds. So we predominantly build sheds, Hugh. We've got 11 staff. We've started converting some of our sheds into houses, given our housing background. And yeah, look, we've sort of done everything, I guess, over the years, from, as I said, from shed building to architectural homes and volume housing as well.
Yeah, brilliant. You certainly touched on nearly every single avenue that you can sort of go down when it comes to the building industry as a builder. Out of all of those, what would you surmise as being the most exciting area that you sort of worked in?
Nearly everything, because when I first started, everything was new. So learning how to build, furniture was exciting for me, because I think as a kid I always wanted to build something. I was working with my hands. I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed when it came to school. But you put a bit of wood in front of me, and I could make something out of it. So I think I knew subconsciously that that's what I wanted to do as a kid. So that was exciting. One of my best mates and I, when we left, because we were working together in the same company, then we both left and decided to start a business of our own, and that was nervous, frightening, exciting, because we had never done that before. And so every job we took on was, we started painting, bricklaying, making the kitchens, and doing the roofing, and tiling and plastering it. I think most builders of my age back in the day, we put our hand to nearly every part of the trade. And of course, obviously with compliance nowadays, we're not allowed to touch the majority, if I just said. But back then it was okay to do that. And I think everything that was new was exciting. And certainly after a period of time doing the same thing, it got a little bit, I don't say boring, but we're always looking for something else to do. And I think that's why we changed, into different areas over a period of time.
Yeah, brilliant. So when it comes to your time in the industry, you've been involved in so many different varied aspects of the industry, from your complicated houses, McMansions and that sort of thing, down to small renovations, and all the relationships for the build were different. Can you tell us a little bit about the patterns and the experiences you had over the last sort of 25 years from when you started getting into the home building itself?
The patterns. I think the patterns for me was that, I learnt very quickly that communication and documentation were key. As I said, we my partner and I, we did our apprenticeship building furniture, and then got thrown in the deep end running our own business. We didn't have any education in terms of running the business, and so that took a long time to understand. But going from an employee to being self-employed, I think the challenge, of course, was not the nails into the wood or the stuff that we already knew physically. It was actually understanding the customer, having a customer first. What do we do with this customer, the first one? Going out and quoting the job and hoping that we won it. And then how do we treat that customer? So we had no experience in it. We just thought turning up and doing a great job was enough. But soon learned that if you were going to turn up, if you said you were going to turn up on a particular time, you made sure you did. And if it wasn't going to happen, you made sure you let the customer know. And back then, of course, there were no mobile phones. There were telephone boxes scattered around, all the neighbourhoods hopefully with a phone book in them. So if you wanted to let somebody know that you're running late, or you had to stop, pull up a telephone box and find their number and give them a call. So things have changed today, of course, where, funnily, I just thought then, Hugh, there are so many people that still don't communicate, and yet the ease of communication is just so simple now. We've all got the technology to be able to do that, and people just don't follow through. So your communication, understanding the customer, listening to the customer, obviously all those skills I've learned over many years, and have spent a lot of time studying that to get better at it. Having said that, when I've done that, learning how to understand the customer, then I started to be able to understand the projects better and the customer's expectations. And I took those skills with me when we were dealing with architects, especially with the architectural mansions, as you mentioned. Is it because quite often, I found that the architects themselves were pretty bad at communicating and listening to the customer. Most of the architects we dealt with, had their idea about how to build a house and how it should look, and the customer was secondary. And I'm thinking, I just don't understand that. The customer doesn't want this, and yet you say it's got to be there, and I couldn't figure that out. But, so we had a few heated discussions with some of the architects about the fact that, hang on a minute, Mrs. Smith didn't want this, and why is it in there? Why you want us to build that? So we've had those experiences, which were less enjoyable than other good times. But I think listening, as I said, understanding the customer and communication for me are the three biggest skills I think that any builder needs to learn.
Yeah, definitely. It's just sort of on what you're discussing then, the experiences that people get from all the different professionals and the communication levels. Like it's just amazing how over the past 20 years the communication ability has increased so much, yet it's still underutilized.
Oh, definitely.
So you've got all these lines of communication, whether it is email, whether it is a phone call, whether it's text message, or these days you've got WhatsApp and all the social media content and ways of communicating with each other through social media, through all the messaging apps and that sort of thing. It's amazing how, because of the way the industry has sort of been, even from back when you were talking about mobile phones being on street corners, and not mobile phones, phone boxes being on street corners, and that's how we got in contact with clients, and it was you were calling a landline,
Mm.
and if you didn't get through at the time, then you might have been able to leave a message if they had an answering machine or things like that. So we've advanced with the communication aspect, but there's still a lot of people that are back in that, oh well, we can't communicate with them, or we don't think of communicating with a client because we're still stuck in that 1990s 1980s mentality. A lot of the industry is still sort of stuck there, and that's the business model that's sort of been there.
Yeah, but I tend to agree. I think also too, as the younger generations come through, I think the fact that, you know, a lot of the younger builders that I see now that have gone through school with computers and phones, I think it's a lack of planning too. Can sometimes, you know, they'll wake up in the morning and they'll get on the phone and they want this delivery and that delivery by 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, how can you expect someone to do that? And of course, then a supplier might say, well, look, I'm sorry you haven't given me enough notice, but I need it for the job. I've told Mr. Smith I'm going to be there, you know, this morning. And it's like, well, why do that on the day? That should have been done a week ago. So I think it's the demographic of the younger guys out there that, and I'm not saying it's everybody, but I see that a lot with some of the employees we've had over the years, is that they fly by the seat of their pants and think that, you know, thinking they can pick up the phone and have things miraculously done. And, you know, it's not until you start, if you really want to get involved with making you the best version of yourself in business that you can, is that the planning needs to happen regardless. Like it was for us back 30, 40 years ago, we still had to plan, more so because the line of communication was nothing like it is today.
Yeah.
So you know, I guess I'm not an old and grumpy builder, but I just think that there's no excuse for not communicating now, and I think it could be a weakness.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that, I mean, I'm not an old and grumpy builder. I'm not a young buck either, so I'm somewhere in between. But it's something that has been there and has spoken to us, especially to me and my business, with making sure that the communication level, instead of it being down at basic levels, you get it right up high, and you just make sure that clients know what's going on, our suppliers, trades, and that sort of thing. The planning's all there, so that then I can go and have a conversation with the owner, with the client, and let them know what's going on. And because that level of communication is there, whether it does come from an email in the afternoon, just letting them know this is where we're up to at the moment, we're looking forward to this, just wanted you to know about this, to seeing them in person and having that meeting, whether it's a weekly meeting, fortnightly meeting, or anything like that on site, having those conversations and being able to do that, even in the initial stages when we're helping people design their homes, like having that weekly email, just letting them know what's going on, or just calling them up going, oh, we've just hit a milestone, we've gotten to this at the moment, we're really excited for you, and we're looking towards it hitting here at some point soon as well, just letting you know that's where we're up to.
Right. And I think it's great. And even if there's nothing to tell them, it should, you know, you give them a call and just say, look, you know, we haven't forgotten about you. We weren't there this week as you knew, but I just want to let you know that yes, we've got this week out of the way and we will be there the following week. It's just, how long does it take to make it? I was going to say, how long does it take to make a 30-second phone call? Probably takes about 30 seconds. I've just worked that out.
Yeah, it's communication is a massive aspect, and a lot of people are dropping the ball when it comes to that. And clients, really, at the end of the day, they should know and get the feeling from whoever they're working with that they're going to actually get that level of communication where they can rely on them to give them a call if something's going wrong, something's going right, and the client's going to essentially know, because they're getting that much better experience from somebody that's doing the work with them.
Sure.
So, that's brilliant. So we've touched a little bit on the the franchise builders and volume builders, and down to the custom one-off homes. And the experience is different, the pros and cons and how you'll be affected. But we'll touch on that soon. But right now, let's have a bit of a chat about what you believe can be the most challenging hurdle mentally when going through a project. We can break it down to a little bit easier things if we want, and go into things like when beginning your first thoughts on starting a project, or designing or planning a project, going through the actual build, and after completion as well. So we don't have to touch on all of it, but I think we can touch on a little bit of it, because it's a pretty loaded question, that one.
Yeah, look, and there's a lot to discuss too, I guess. But look, I think in the early days, before we start, is to make sure we've got all the documentation in place. And that can be quite a lengthy time and frustrating for the customer, because they've not done this before, and it's the question they've asked is that, well, why have we got to go through so much? Why do we have to fill out all of the colour selection sheets and the products? Why do we need to get that listed? And of course, the most important thing then is that if everything's signed off before we start the job, then the final costings are done. We've filled out the contract based on those colour selection sheets, so that when we hand it over to our production manager, he's got a file of everything, and we can make a start. And then he doesn't have to keep coming back and making calls. He can just go and manage the whole project in a timely manner, schedule all of the sub-trades in, knowing full well this is what you've chosen. So I guess whilst it can be the challenge, I think it's worth the pain going through from the customer's point of view, and ours too, because it takes a fair bit of time to get all this together. And those of us that aren't really big on paperwork, and I've got to put my hand up and say I'm not really that good on paperwork, but I'm lucky I've got people around me that are exceptional with paperwork, and they do that for me. So I think that's probably one of the initial pain points, but it's well worth it in the beginning. So it's well worth it in the end, once you've got that done, and then the job should run fairly smoothly after that. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't make a change, of course, but even then, making a change or a variation can sometimes interfere with the production schedule, especially if something's been done already, but the customer, when they come and inspect the site, decide to make a change. It can be time consuming and costly, because the thing is, something might have to be undone then to be recreated the way that they've chosen to move forward. So there's time frame, time constraints. There's, for the production manager, of course, there's subcontractors that need to be held back because of the change and rescheduled. Then there's the cost of the material change, cost of the labour. So the teams that were probably scheduled to go onto another job have to come back. So it's not just it can be just a wall being moved, or something like that, an internal wall. And quite often under the code these days, I think the walls now have to be redrawn up and maybe amendments made. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the case. So there's lots of, I think it goes back to the communication again, is making the customer understand that, hey, yeah, that we're happy to help you in this case, but do you understand the implications of this? It's not just, yes, it might only take us a day to make the change, but then there's all the things behind the scenes that need to be changed around that. Subcontractor timeframes need to be moved, the labour and jobs that could be held up for another day or two on other jobs, and then there's a cost. I don't know whether I've answered the question. I've got off track a little bit, but it's I think it's the things that that can be challenging and frustrating. But once again, even with something as seemingly complicated as what I just said, it's about talking with the customer and making them understand.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, communication is one of those biggest things, and challenging the challenging hurdle of communication is one of those things that a lot of clients that we've seen, and a lot of people looking to do any kind of construction work, have found that, well, the most common response that we get back with when we ask people what they're experiencing is that whole thing of, well, builders don't get back to us, or we don't hear from them for 6 weeks before they say, oh, well, we've done this. Are you still looking to go ahead with this? And then they put the pressure on you to come in and do the work. You've probably seen some of those sales tactics by other builders over the years, or you've had some of those stories come to you as well. I know that when we have had people say some of those things to us, we're just sort of sitting there just going, how do some of these guys just sort of think it's okay to be behaving like that when you've got really good prospects or leads or clients that they have an expectation, but the expectation isn't being met, and that person has not actually had a conversation with them about their expectations.
You wonder how come these guys, how these people even get business, don't you? I mean, it's crazy. In our business, listening, we train our team on listening, with the intent to understand the customer's needs or the prospect's needs. And then, of course, getting back to communication, that just seems to, it's a common denominator in everything we do is communicating. And, I think once we listen to the customer and they feel like they've been understood, so we take the time to listen. Once they feel understood, they feel comfortable to go with us. They understand during the process that during the sales process or the presentation that the timeframes are the timeframes. And look, we're all living in a very new world since COVID. And I think, we've all come to the expectation that, everything's gone up in price. It's taking 50 to 80% longer now, 50% to 80% longer for the whole project. And if we're honest and open with all of that, and we're very transparent in the beginning, I think then the customer goes away at ease knowing they're in the right place. And if they've had a bad experience, like you just said, it's about unpacking that and listening to what it is that really what the pain points were with that previous experience, and letting them know that this is how we do business and this is how we communicate. And we're all sort of snowed under still from the backlog of work during COVID, and please understand that we've got people here that will take your call no matter what, and we will pass the message on, and we'll get back to you no matter what. In our business, I've got a full-time girl that actually follows up.
Yeah.
She's on the phone every day. And it's so important to do that. And then anyone that picks up the phone, if she's busy, will take the call and happily answer. Answer the question on the day if they can, or take a message and put a time frame on when we get back to them. So, if that person's in the office or will be, or at lunch, within an hour or 2 hours, the person that needs to respond will be back within a couple of hours. And we're constantly talking to our team to make sure that happens. Do we get it right 100% of the time? No, we're only human, and sometimes we do slip. And it's those times when we know we've slipped up, do we talk about it as a team and go, how do we do this better? Because it is important. And I know you know that too, is that it's so important. As a business owner, Hugh, and some of my staff think I'm a bit crazy, but when we hear that we haven't done the right thing, I get excited. And I get excited for one reason, and that is that finally our systems have been broken, or our processes have been broken. Great. How do we fix it to make it even better? Now, it doesn't happen often, which is a good thing, because we try and improve things every day. But invariably, once again, it gets back down to communication. We've let someone down. We didn't get back to them. When we drill down, everyone gets sick of me saying, well, okay, I want to go right back to the beginning. what part of our process didn't work this time. And generally it's only human error, and that's okay. That's excusable once, or twice. But I mean, any more than that, we've got to really look at, what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It was, well, what you were just sort of discussing there just reminded me of a story that I was reading just the other day, and it was a little bit scary reading this story about a builder that was essentially going under, and they were just about to fold. And one of the employees went on record to go and say what had sort of been happening in the background. Now, this builder was not a massive volume builder, but they were doing anywhere from 100 to 200 homes a year. And this girl was essentially thrust into answering the phones and being the first point of call for the business. And it was interesting reading this because I knew that a lot of this sort of thing had happened, but to have it sort of broadcast in this fashion where it was, this is what's happening. We would be getting a phone call and we've been told by higher up, that phone number comes up on the screen, don't answer it.
Wow.
And we know that these sorts of things happen in a lot of different industries and a lot of different businesses, because they're like, oh, this is a bad customer, or this is somebody that we don't want to hear from. I mean, personally, there are things that I do with my phone where it's, okay, well, it's a scam call. Okay, that gets blocked. We know that one. But these are doing it to customers, clients, prospects, and all that sort of thing, to say, no, we're not going to answer that phone call because we're going to get abused by this client because we aren't delivering on what we said we would. What's the harm in actually taking the phone call?
Well, do you know what? I take the opposite approach, and I think it's worked. Not that we get many, but obviously when we were building the business, in the early days, is that if there was an issue, then basically all of us stopped what we were doing and we worked on that job. What do we need to do? How can we make it better? How quickly could we do it? And funnily enough, instead of hiding from that, as you just described, we embraced it, grabbed the customer. What do we need to do to fix it? Invariably within 1 or 2 days, the whole problem's gone away and the customer's just so raving about us because we're back on track. And okay, we might have had to spend a few hours on it, but I mean, how much? But we've saved our relationship with that customer, because we don't intentionally go out to make a mistake on a job, but we are human, and it can happen, and it will happen forever, because no one is foolproof, and it's just how we react to it. The thing is, of course, is that after that, we have to really pull it apart to find out why it happened and make sure that we can avoid that again. Because if it continues to go on, which can happen, then we're not doing the right thing we're not doing the right thing for ourselves. If we continue to just let it go, and it's a repeat issue, well, then we're fools to ourselves. We need to correct it so it doesn't happen again. So yeah, look, we've received some calls that are over the years that are not very nice. We've had clients that we thought were the right clients for us that didn't turn out to be not so good, and they were serial pains in the
Fundament.
Yep. And so once we've identified that, we've come too far, there's no escaping this, well then, same thing again, let's get this job done as quickly as possible. We might put more resources onto that job to get it turned over more quickly, so that we can sign off on it and move on. We've done that as well. But, obviously in the beginning now, as our business has evolved, we've got a better qualification process now, and we want to make sure that understanding who are our favourite customers, who are our perfect customer, if you like. So we've created a customer avatar that we believe is our perfect customer, and we measure all of our prospects against that now. And because we want everyone that comes to us to have a great experience, but I also want my team to have a great experience as well. So it's a great thing that we did many years ago, and it's enabled us to continue to have some really good relationships.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the things that when I've spoken to a few people about their experiences with builders and even just other businesses in general, has been that whole thing of, okay, well, the clients coming in, they're basically putting people through an interview process to find out if they're going to go with them to do any of the work that they want to do. And at the same time, each business should be doing that with the people that are coming into them as well, because every single business has a skill that they're bringing to the table. And if people, or the skill, task, abilities, they're all on the table. But at the same time, if there's projects that they can't do because they don't have that skill or ability to do that one, they need to know that and not take on those jobs that they can't do because they don't have the ability to do them. And that's one thing when it comes to the communication that really should be upfront, is we're letting you know that we're actually finding out whether you're the right person for us and we're the right people for you. And I know you've done this, and I've certainly done it, where it's been that whole thing of letting people know, look, I don't think that we're the right fit for each other, and we're just letting you know this straight off the bat because we think you might be better off with this guy over here because he's got the right skill set to be able to assist you. We've asked you all the questions that we can to find out what we're going to be able to do to help you, and the best way that we can help you is actually recommend you onto this guy over here. Because there's a lot of guys that just take things on and they don't have the ability or the skills to be able to do the project, and then things start falling over, and then the client gets this really terrible experience.
Exactly. And we've identified years ago that it was okay to say no, like you just mentioned. It's okay if we don't feel that the mix is right between our business and a potential customer. If it's not right, it's not right, and it's far better to say, look, I'm sorry, we can't help you in this instance, but give them a possible solution and pass on a competitor's information that may be able to help. Now, so we want those people to even go away and go, well, okay, at least they did give us some options, rather than say no, sorry, and let you flounder out there, or so. But I mean, first of all, you've got to go through the process of understanding who is your perfect customer, and that takes a while to get right. Rather than what you just said then, is that there are plenty of builders out there that just take on work because they think they have to, so I think that's not the case, and we don't need to we don't need to take everything on. I mean, there's no point signing up 3 years work. Someone's going to miss out on their job. Someone's going to get very frustrated, especially if you've told them we can start it within 6 months. We can't. We got to, and I guess that's another thing too. We've got to be honest. We have to be honest, transparent, truthful about our capabilities.
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks, Paul. It's brilliant stuff. So here's a fun little thing for you. You'll enjoy this part. Is I'd like to give a little bit of a selfless promotion and plug to everybody that joins me on here, and I'd like you to give everybody an idea on how to get in touch with you if you're looking for a large shed, something, a man cave, or
a small shed, or a carport. Yeah, look, we're the local Fairdinkum shed distributor here in Hobart. We convert our sheds into Class 1 dwellings, so with we've got a few of those that we do because we've come from a housing background. You know, we have the skills, the trades to be able to do that. We're not a volume house builder anymore, so we don't profess to be that. We're not kitted up or skilled up to do huge amounts of houses, but you know, we're very good at listening. We're very good at taking our customers from through the whole process, from the council. We do the concrete, we do the builder shed, and we can connect to the plumbing and the electrical. We do all of that. And the same with our little kit homes as well. We do the same. We can fit them out, or we can just do them to lock up stage. So, you know, we're pretty flexible that way. We do have a lead time, a fairly extensive lead time, because we are extremely, not say oversubscribed yet. We were during COVID, but you know, our customers are happy to wait, and they understand the time frames it takes to get these through council and that sort of thing. So we've only got to Google Fairdinkum sheds in Hobart, and there will be.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, let's jump on to the little bit that I sort of touched on a little bit before, the fun stuff of franchise versus volume versus custom. So it's last little bit, we'll try to do it as quick as we can.
Okay.
So obviously there's three distinct types of builders or segments of building in the residential market anyway. And yeah, I just wanted to ask you, do you think that when going into a project, the listeners should be prepared for different experiences they'll get and what expectations they should have for the different types of builders?
Well, my experience in these areas are, look, I think if we go to the boutique end of the market, the one-offs, I think, you know, there are builders out there that specialise in that. So they're not interested in doing massive amounts of volumes of houses. And, you know, there are a few builders here in Hobart that come to mind actually that specialise in that. And there are customers out there that don't want the production line type house, you know, and they can afford, you know, the boutique end or the one-off customised homes. So I guess, and we've done a few of those over the years with the architect, as I mentioned earlier, and I think if you're geared up for that, they come with a higher expectation from the customer and from the architect, of course, and they should be searching. Anyone that wants to do that should be searching for someone that specialises in that area, I believe. In terms of the franchise builders, early on with our experience with the Tondo franchise, we learned a lot about how to manage our business in terms of volume and manage our business in terms of sales and marketing and sort of thing. So that was a really good experience for us in the early days. It also came with, you know, a myriad of pre-designed homes that we were able to offer for the startup and middle income or middle size homes, if you like. And that was a great learning experience for me. And I think we became a small volume builder as a result of that here in Hobart. So, you know, I say small, we were doing 70 to 80 houses a year. So that took me from a carpenter on the tools into a management role. So I learned a lot about how to manage my business then. There was support from the franchisor, which was really good in terms of marketing, sales and business management and training. So I learned a lot from that. I'm not sure these days whether a franchise builder would have any advantage over pricing. Maybe. Back in the early days we did, because there was no other franchises here in Hobart, and so we had the volume. We could buy or leverage off the volume that was being created Australia-wide with this franchise. And so that gave us a little bit of an edge. I guess the concern that I have now, looking back from a customer's point of view, is being aware as a potential customer that the volume or franchise builder had the capacity to be able to build your house at a certain time. The other advantage that would be with the volume builder is that quite often the volume and the franchise builders have land or access to land as well. So with a land shortage, especially down here in Hobart, that quite often can be an advantage, especially for first home buyers if they're looking at some of the bigger volume builders that have greenfield sites that they may have developed already and can do up a house on land package. That may be that be more suited to that type of person that's looking for that. I think maybe my experience with the boutique end of the market is that price is not as important as the design and the quality of the finish is. So there's. I think it's really. I keep saying I think. I know from our experience that the customers that want the top end, the architectural design, are more. What's the word? When they understand exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Discerning, maybe that's the word.
Yep.
So that they know. So they're quite often easier to deal with because they know specifically the products that they want in their house, and that makes it easier when it comes to the colour selection sheets and the colours. The first home buyers and maybe the second move up buyers that we've experienced are more price orientated, and sometimes they'll get a little bit upset when they've gone to choose their selections. They've found a really nice product that's blown the price 5 or 10 grand. It's usually in the kitchen, when they're choosing the kitchen products and the white goods and stuff like that in the kitchen, and they go, oh, I've just spent 20 grand more on the kitchen, but I really love it. How do we do this? It's like, so that can be a pain point. Whereas, as I said, the other end of the market, the customer already knows that they want this particular product in the kitchen. They know the kitchen's going to be 100 grand or 150 grand or whatever. They know that already. And so I don't know whether I've answered your question. I've gone off the track again, but that's it.
No, that's okay, mate. I think the whole idea of it is to get an honest overview of what's going on and expectations that really everybody should have when it comes to going into doing any kind of building, whether it is with a franchise volume or a custom builder. Each one has their particular purpose, and going into each one's office, you should have that little expectation where it's okay, like you said, going to your custom boutique end, people go in there and they know that they want a custom home. They know that they're going to be expecting a higher price, because at the end of the day, this builder is going to be spending more time on their particular project. They're not going to have 30 different site supervisors like a volume builder will have for doing 10. Each supervisor handles anywhere from 10 to 30 homes, so they're spread thin, and they're basically just following the process that the builder has, and so they're sort of running around, and you're not necessarily going to get the time with the builder or the whoever's on site that you might need. And custom homes, generally the clients have an expectation that they're going to have meetings quite often with the builder, seeing how progress is going, and be able to get that time, where you're not necessarily going to get that with a volume builder. And volume builders run to a process and a system that builds the house as quick as possible, and you should expect that there's probably going to be a few hiccups in there as well, and you're not necessarily going to get the opportunity to speak to the person that you need to resolve some of those things, and sometimes the phone might not even get answered. So there's those little expectations that we sort of need to temper when we go into a particular project, and those are the sort of things that I've sort of seen over the years and experienced from the trades background that I have, been a carpenter in a previous life, and then starting out on volume builders frames, and this is back in the 90s as well, and doing the old hardwood frames, which you go home with black hands every day, which was great fun to do. Like you'd remember those houses, and seeing the way that those homes were built then, and going, oh well, this is pretty cool. It's all fast paced. It happens really quickly. And I remember standing on the first ever frame, and I'm watching the way that it's going up, and we put this frame up in the space of a week. 2-story home. We put this house up in the space of a week, and we're standing there just going, okay, well, I was standing there just going, this is amazing. This happened extremely quickly. Just across the road was a custom home builder, and these guys were pottering around on the job, and in the space that it took us, in the time that it took us to put up this 2-story frame, these guys put up maybe 5 walls, and we're standing there going, don't know how these guys are making money. But now it makes sense to me from a lowly 16-year-old walking around going, oh geez, those guys are slow, because I'm hearing that from the guy that I'm working for at the time and from the site supervisor going, yeah, well, it's just custom homes. They take longer, and people go, oh, they're on the go slow. They're obviously getting paid to do that. That's fine. But we were there, and we were just getting the whip put on us the whole time to get it done. Just get it done, get it done, get it done. And that's the sort of thing that that sort of comes across in those differences between your volume builders compared to your custom home builders, and the experience that you should expect. There's a little bit more time that's taken on the custom homes compared to the volumes, and quality levels might be just slightly different, and getting the right finishes. And then, of course, compliance as well. Compliance when it comes to the statutory regulations that are going to come in from the building surveyors and whoever else might be involved. So it's good fun.
Yeah, it can be. And I think, one of the things that I think any potential customer needs to understand too is that don't be frightened to ask a lot of questions about, how will I be communicated, to, what's the process, and ask the builder to show them how the job is scheduled. Most of the builders now use a software, one of the software packages. Ask the questions. How will the job be scheduled? Can you show me an example? Can you show me an example of the work you've done? Can you show me how will I be communicated with and how often? I think, we hear lots of stories, don't we, about builders that are doing the wrong thing. And, I'm surprised that we've still got builders out there that even consider doing the wrong thing. I just don't understand it. And, our laws still are not quite right yet to weed these people out, because a lot of them still aren't qualified builders anyway. But I know you have the housing warranty in the mainland. We used to have it here in Tasmania, but that's gone now. But our building surveyors that come and inspect the work, those that are left here, are fairly strict, and they follow the BCA pretty much to the letter, the majority of the time. And so I think, the governing bodies now, like the building surveyors, as I mentioned, I think have really made the jobs better, and the power that they have to enforce change or to enforce refinements to jobs if they're not up to standard, I think is a good thing. I've said it again. I know it's a bloody good thing, because there are still some shonkies out there.
Yep.
So I believe that there's lots of resources for a potential purchaser of a new home, HIA, MBA, lots of information there that they can gather. So, and I believe that people should take their time. Look, I've known you for a number of years, and I know the group of builders that you're involved with, and I understand that their process that they've put in place over many, many years, and I wouldn't have any hesitation in recommending yourself or any one of those builders in that group who spent countless hours refining your process, just the way that we've spoken about it today. So there are builders out there that really care. They care about, and they understand their responsibility to a potential customer. And the responses that I've seen from many of the builders in this group, their customers are so happy. And happy customer is a referring customer. And it can be a happy experience.
Definitely.
A long experience, as we've talked about already today, given the new world we live in, but it still can be relatively pain-free.
Yeah, definitely. And we're all about pain-free life. So that's the whole reason of doing a podcast like this, is so that we can help people get that pain-free experience and actually enjoy building their home and be able to come home every day once it's completed and go, oh, look what we did. This is amazing. Get to live in this, which is
correct
to us. That's a much better thing than anything else.
So, absolutely.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate you coming on today. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see I'm in one of my funky Friday shirts. And yeah, I'll put a link below if you're interested in checking out their bits of information. And Paul likes these shirts as well. He's not wearing one today, but he should be.
I know, right? And it slipped my mind, buddy. I'm sorry, but definitely. Well, it's too good a shirt to get dirty, and I've been greasing up the tractor this morning, and I've got my grease jacket on, so
nice.
I didn't want to get grease on the trademark shirt.
Well, I've got. Yesterday I actually ordered a few new ones, so there's a few new ones, a couple of new bright ones coming through. So,
and some undies too, isn't there? Great, there's no trademark undies now, I think. Or
I think there is now. I didn't get quite that far into it.
Well, I'm not going to show you
mine. One of those funny little things was I actually sent an email to Trademark yesterday, so we'll see what happens with that.
Cool.
There might be something to come out of that, because I might even have a chat with some of the guys over there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be great.
But yeah, I want to thank you again, and yeah, I look forward to having more chats with you in the future, whether it's on here or in person. Look forward to doing that. But thank you again for joining me this morning, and I want to
absolute pleasure, mate.
I want to thank all of the listeners as well for joining us, and I hope you got something from the chat with Paul this morning. And if you want to get in contact with Paul, you can check him out at Fairdinkum Sheds in Hobart. The website, just Google that one and it'll pop up. You can't miss him on there. If you want to get in contact with myself, you can get in contact with me through my business at New Realm Homes, or leave a comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube, and I'll have all contact details in the comment section, in the tags underneath, and you'll be able to get in contact with us and have a chat. But thank you again, Paul, and I look forward to the next episode. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day.